Yo, yo, yo. Hello. How are you guys doing? It has been a while. It has been a while. We didn't really do the Friday show, so it's actually been like almost a week. Or it actually has been exactly a week. You will have to... I always have an excuse every time I start the show, but today I actually have one, which is I ruined my back earlier. I actually didn't wanna stream because I wasn't sure I was gonna be able to sit because I'm getting old, and I lifted something that I apparently shouldn't have, and my back went out. But yeah, so if I cut it short after 15, 30 minutes, that's why. Just so you know. But yeah. All jokes aside, I was moving boxes, and one fell down, and I was like, I can catch that, and it was quite a heavy one, and I did catch it, but my back got fucked. So, is what it is. But yeah, we're all getting old, waiting for this ETF thing. It's getting close though. It's getting close. There's some reports from some people that there's gonna be the ETFs coming tomorrow. Could be announced any second now. And yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if it was denied. So it's almost certain an approval coming today or tomorrow, I'm guessing. I actually haven't been following up on Twitter. In the last few days, I've just been busy doing other things. But yeah, if something comes up, just write it in the chat because I don't have Twitter on this computer. And then we can look at it together. Long and strong. It's a ballsy move, my friend. But praying for you. Don, did you cope so hard being sidelined that you hurt your back? No, I'm all good, man. Thanks. No, I'm just plain old, and that's what I am. Why the fuck is ETH pumping on Bitcoin news? I think that's pretty straightforward. Basically, there was no real reason to buy ETH when you have a Bitcoin ETF coming. The moment you have the Bitcoin ETF, that news is out of the way, and then you can speculate on an ETH ETF. So basically, the narrative rotates. The only way that narrative plays out is if Bitcoin goes up after the ETF. But a lot of people seem to think that is the case. So they're just speculating on ETH, which I don't think is it's not the worst speculation. But yeah. Anyway, before we properly start the show, big shout out to Woo for sponsoring it. Really appreciate their support. If you want to check them out, links are in the description. They've been amazing partners to work with. And their exchange is most definitely moving in the right direction, which is quite cool to see. What did you think of the reaction to the fake SEC tweet? Thanks, Don. I mean, I've not really been following Twitter at all in the last 48 hours. I did see that there was a ETF approval tweet from the SEC that pumped, and then immediately sold off. I think there's basically a peek into the future. Basically, you get the ETF, you get sell the news event immediately. The thing is, now that we've had it already, maybe that's just not how it's gonna play out. But I still think this week to the upside and then to the downside, in my opinion, is basically this. So we had that fake tweet that pumped the market back in October. I think there's pretty much the same thing to the downside, right? But I could be wrong. I don't really have any positions going. I'm just chilling. So Bitcoin just chilling would be awesome. I think that's the best case. If it just goes sideways, it's the most bullish it can be. There will never be a reason to buy ETH, either buy Bitcoin or buy one of the altcoins that will replace it. I disagree with that. I think ETH is less risky than a lot of the other altcoins, and if you catch it right, you can still make quite a bit of money. Just look at the ETH BTC chart. From the bottom to the top, that was 400% like further than Bitcoin went. If you go from the bottom to the top on ETH USD, that is quite a bit more even. So I don't necessarily agree. I mean, I get where you're coming from. You're like, yeah, you can make more money with the altcoins, trading the altcoins. But I think you have to go down the shitter and then you can get rugged, right? It's basically like easier exposure to alts. So I'm like, just because ETH went down, I'm not gonna be like the guy that's like, hey, you should never buy ETH. ETH didn't have a narrative, and that's why I kept on saying don't buy ETH. If the ETF, the Bitcoin ETF comes through now, I think that is a different story, right? Because then you actually have a narrative, especially if the Bitcoin ETF pumps Bitcoin, right? Like, let's say Bitcoin goes from 46 to 60K on the Bitcoin ETF news front, like slowly but surely, then it makes a lot of sense to be just like, hey, if another altcoin is gonna get an ETF, it's most likely gonna be ETH. If it's not gonna be Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash, you never know. You never know with the boomers, but and then you can just speculate on that. And there's a lot of juice that you can squeeze on the relative pair, right? I mean, just back to the highs. That's a 60% move, and then to a flippening of sorts, you have quite a bit more. So I'm not really in that camp. I think it can be a really good play. It was a terrible one. I'm still not convinced that it's right now the time for it. But I see a narrative, and that narrative needs to be supported by Bitcoin going up. Are you going to trade Bitcoin only? No, I like trading. I like trading ETH. I traded Solana. I traded ETH last year. I traded Litecoin. Like, I don't only trade Bitcoin. It's just I'm focused on Bitcoin. I want to get Bitcoin right, or at least not wrong, and then go from there. Can you please ask Wu to add scale orders, like buying 10k USD of coin XYZ between 3 to 3.5 without manually inserting every single limit order? Yeah, I can. No, everyone will talk about the ETH ETF. Yeah, I mean, it's just how it is now. I think you once said after ETFs, trading will be starting in 6 months. Some are saying trading will start immediately, like this week. What are your comments on that? I don't think I ever said 6 months. I said 3 months, and I have corrected that view. Apparently, it's going to be quite quick. So I think that's, if the ETF is approved, we're going to see trading pretty much almost immediately. Reaction was pretty poor. Yeah, but I mean, the reaction isn't really the reaction yet. Once you get an SEC tweet, that's the actual move. This, I mean, yes, but you need the SEC. This is just gonna be a Q&A, I guess, because like price-wise, we can talk about price, but there's really nothing important because the ETF reaction is just gonna tell the whole story, right? We're either right here inverse, or we are here, and we'll see which one it is based on how the ETF plays out. And if it's this, that would be nice. If it's this, at least we get to buy cheaper. As long as the ETF shit is out of the way, because I really don't want to trade news. Like, I'm not a news trader. Yes, if it's approved today, tomorrow trading starts. Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah. Are you buying ETH here or no? No, we can talk about ETH real quick. ETH BTC. So, the reason why I'm just not buying into the momentum, right? And I mean, it is quite enticing, right? And I've seen pretty much everyone on Twitter do it. We're trading like this right now, pretty much exactly, right? So, you have a spike upwards, you bleed it out. You have a spike upwards here, bleed it out. You have a spike upwards, you bleed it out. you had another spike upwards. Now, you could gamble that this is the last one just based on the fact that the ETF is so close and that this is actually the bottom. But technically speaking, right, just ignoring everything else. And I mean, I've been saying technically speaking, Bitcoin should go up. I just don't like the ETF thing looming out above our head. And the technicals have been quite nice on the move up, right? So I should have just been on the technical side. And on the ETH technical front, it's also quite simple for now, and that can change obviously. But for now, this is a very clean downtrend, and spikes are being sold into. So do I want to buy a spike upwards? Not necessarily. But I think this one has a decent chance to stick. One of the reasons is that it is kind of like we had this test of this very long-term trend line that we have had on the chart for years now. It moved the price up, and then we retested it, closed on it, and now we had a nice reaction again. So this is basically the last time I would ever trust this trend line, right? If it comes back, I think it's just gonna break. So I think just based on that, you can basically buy and then have your invalidation with a close below this trend line. And I think that's actually not the worst trade. If I was actively trading right now, I might actually even take it. But I still don't plan to take trades. I'm moving house in not even a week. I mean, right now disabled, and I'm still not getting any sleep because my daughter is waking me up every. I mean, right now it's okay. Right now it's every 2 hours, but it was every 20, 30 minutes for weeks at a time. So I'm not personally trading. I'd much rather just chill and then see how this all plays out, right? How the ETF plays out, how the market looks afterwards. And then I think there's going to be plenty to trade for me. Seda says hit the like button. Yeah, you should. You guys should. But yeah, I mean, it's basically waiting room. And you're going to see when this SEC news comes out, because we're going to get candles like this, which is going to be fun. Probably the same, right? As in, like, either it just nukes and then it comes back up, or it goes up and then nukes, and then you're going to see which direction it actually wants to take. As in, like, I could even see it do something like this. It goes up, it nukes, it comes back up, it goes back up again, and it nukes again. Something like that wouldn't surprise me. News events are quite volatile. Obviously, the opposite, just nuking, also wouldn't surprise me. Like, nothing should surprise you in these kind of events. Besides getting liquidated if you're on too much leverage. Let me get this monitor closer. Like, I literally cannot move. I'm just sitting here like a fucking 60-year-old groaning every time I move. When you take a ETH BTC trade, like the trend line once you mentioned, do you just buy ETH USD but use the ETH BTC chart for invalidation? Sorta, yeah. It always depends, right? So for example, this is why I'm kind of like, why the ETH trade is a little bit difficult, because I think the ETH trade is gonna come around the moment Bitcoin is gonna be close to topping, right? So the moment, and this is something I've been saying the entire bull run, like technically you can hold any position until ETH BTC goes up, right? And that is sort of still true in my opinion. As in, like, if ETH takes off too much, I think that's gonna be near a Bitcoin short-term top. Right now, like, ETH's just not been doing anything, right? So it's been okay. But if ETH takes off, the Bitcoin trade becomes less attractive. And if that is the case, ETH USD in turn becomes less attractive, right? So you're kind of in this shit position where, yes, you want to be bullish ETH because, I mean, ETH BTC is finally doing something. But that's not going to be necessarily the best for the market as a whole. So you either You just trade the ETH BTC ratio, which is possible, especially if you're capable of using leverage, or you just bet on ETH USD. Yeah. If you're already in the market and bullish, the easiest way to do it, and this is how I usually would do it because I don't trade leverage anymore, is I would just exchange my Bitcoin for ETH, which is pretty much just most straightforward trade. Like you're bullish and then you just flip from Bitcoin to ETH and from ETH to Bitcoin. I think that's the easiest way to do it. So yeah, that's in my opinion the way to go. If you don't hold Bitcoin, then you have to get more creative. Disabled Don, hashtag disabled Don, yeah. Yeah, I hope this goes. It's not going to be fun. Like if I have to move with like a broken back, even though I have people that will move it for me, because I'm old. Back in the day, I used to always move my own shit, no matter how much it was. Nowadays, too old. But yeah, it would still suck, obviously. If you would trade news, where would you place orders here? I mean, if I don't do it, so I cannot help you with that. If we expect a Bitcoin pump on approval, is it dumb to just buy now and sell into 48 to 50? I mean, if you expect that, not necessarily, but just look what happened here. So there's a chance that you just get completely fucked and you get a candle that goes 3K down and you get liquidated in a second. So it's not a surefire bet that you're gonna get upside, because we got the upside here already. It could also just completely just disappear to the downside. So like the whole leverage side of things is gambling at best, in my opinion. Don't hire movers, worth every penny. Of course, that's what I'm saying. I have people, but still, you still have to do stuff. And I mean, yeah. How do you long a ratio? Long ETH, short Bitcoin for the same amount. Exactly. Are you ready to trade the position this month, or will you wait until April? I will wait till earliest March, April is where I'm gonna be starting to actively trade again. It's been really nice to just take a vacation. People have been throwing at me that I've been coping all the time, but I've actually been quite happy. It took me a week or two to get, because when I'm actively trading, right, everything is about trading. I don't get it out of my brain. I don't know how you guys are, but for me, I sit there and I do stuff and I cannot stop thinking about it. I think about price in the back of my mind. I think about where it's gonna go, what the narratives are, all that kind of shit. You live price action basically. And if you have a new family, that's not necessarily the best, right? But sometimes it's just okay, the reward of doing so just vastly outnumbers the downsides. So I was just doing it because I was I have an edge, I need to milk it, and I did for 10 months non-stop. And then I was okay, now I don't have that much of an edge anymore. I could still milk this, but I'm more than happy to take off. And that's kind of what I'm doing. At the end of the day, what is all this money good for, right? If you cannot enjoy it. So that's kind of what I've been doing. Don't really plan on stopping that. But I'm obviously at some point you get the itch again and you're fuck yeah, I wanna do something again. I wanna trade. But for now, I'm quite happy with how it is. You could be super fancy and hire people to pack your boxes. I mean, he actually used a word that I don't even know that is that is supposed to be fancy, I guess. No, I'm not that kind of guy. Hiring movers is already as much as I'm willing to do. I don't know. I feel just if you live your life and then just every inconvenience that you have, you just solve by money, or with money, you start becoming a really shitty person really fast. Like sometimes it's just you have to deal with shitty situations and you have to deal with being uncomfortable from time to time. And I mean, the moving part, I mean, I have a young family, cannot really do it myself. But other than that, I think a lot of the things that you can solve with money, you just shouldn't necessarily. I mean, life is a lot of what happens in between, you know, like it's not all about like, I don't know, just cheating your way out of annoying situations. It's having both. Yeah, it means fancy. Well, I will not even try to pronounce that word. But yeah. But yeah, that's my opinion on things. Anyway, high time frame, we can go through the charts. I think they're completely and utterly meaningless at this point. We're all waiting for the ETF, and then the ETF price action is going to happen. So the chart is going to look like whatever it wants to. But high time frame support, 35 to 37. That's a really, really good area of support. Especially now that we've moved quite a bit beyond it. I actually quite like it. Like when we were trading at 39.40, I was like, this is not that great. Now that we've moved a little bit further away, I think it's excellent support on the monthly time frame. So if you get a dip in there, I think there's gonna be willing buyers. So that's the monthly. And obviously resistance at 60K, but we don't really need to talk about that. It's just basically like we're in between both. If you want to pull back 35 to 37, that's the level. If you want to target 60K, and then whatever it does in between, we'll see. And basically, given we are in between the levels, it all depends on how the ETF news hits. If the ETF news hits bullish, I think we could be at 60K. Quite quickly. If it hits bearish, I think we could be at 35K quite quickly. And it's basically a toss-up, and then you just kind of, if you think the market should go up, you can position bullish. If you think the market should go down, you can position bearish. If you don't have a strong view, you can just not position. But that's the high time frame monthly chart. On the weekly time frame, we're kind of in this situation where we need to close this weekly green, and then it looks excellent as long as it kind of does that. Let me remove these dots. Oh, Jesus Christ. I need to stop drawing on the chart. But yeah, basically, the further away we move to the upside, right, the better this support becomes. Right now, it's quite shit, especially given that it is possible that this weekly closes red, and then this is not support yet, right? So as long as we haven't closed green this week, this isn't support on the weekly time frame. And then you have decent support, I think, in this area. And like I said in previous shows, the higher you move up, right, the higher the support goes to, right? So this is something that I see a lot of people do wrong. They're like, okay, I'm missing out on price action, but I have a support here. Like, for example, like they sell, I mean, we can use me as an example. Like I sold 37.5 or something after having been long the entire way up. So I could be like, hey, I sold 37.5. I have a support at 32. That's like where I think I can rebuy, and it's below my exit. And now I'm quite happy about that because fuck yeah, I can buy cheaper. And then price moves from 38 to 50, and then I'd be in the same, like in the situation where I'd be like, no, it has to hit 32K, all right? And that is not helping you because it really doesn't have to do anything. And the further away it gets from an area, the less likely it obviously is to hit it. So what you have to do instead is you kind of just have to be a little bit flexible. And I think being flexible in this instance is basically like, this is roughly support. So 35 to 32 on the weekly time frame as well. It's pretty much the same as on the monthly. It's like where it turned around here, where it turned around here, as decent support, right? So then you have a more accurate kind of idea. And then obviously if it moves here to 60, and then pulls back, what's the nearest support? And these supports are only ever just for if the market collapses, which it tends to do quite a bit, right? You go through the history of Bitcoin, there's a lot of collapses, but let's say you go to 60K, right? You're like the bullishness was justified and everything is pumping, then this would be the support, right? And then you, like, if you get a pullback, quite a big one, and I mean, I would expect at that point, like a 20-30% pullback doesn't seem too crazy, would take us back to the 40, 43. And I think that's kind of like, that's how I look at this chart. Now, obviously, everyone can look at the chart however they want to, but that's just kind of how I map it out. And then all of these kind of pullback levels don't have to mean anything, obviously. I mean, can just keep going up. Me personally, I'm quite shit at trading into momentum to the upside. Like if something already went up quite a bit, like I'm really good at buying these, right? I'm really good at buying these. I bought this one. I bought this one. I actually bought this one too. I got out of this one quite decent. I made a bunch of money on this one. I made a lot of money on this one. But usually I get rid of stuff too early. If I remember correctly, I bought here and sold in here, and then it ran higher. And I think, I don't even know what I did above 60K, but I was bearish below 60K. But basically, like that's how I look at it, and I'm much better at picking the bottoms than just kind of buying into momentum. So you have to take that into consideration when you listen to me, right? Because that's my trading style. I wait for the big nukes. Wherever they come, can take a month, can 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I buy, and the price doesn't really matter, right? Like I bought this one at 4K and then doubled down at 3, and it ran, and I was as happy buying 16K as I was buying 3 and 4K before, right? So like, obviously, like if you were just like sitting there and you'd be like, hey, I got to buy 4K before, I just want to buy 4K again. Like that's just being unrealistic, right? So you have to kind of move your support areas. You cannot just always have the same ones. But yeah, that's just kind of how I look at it. Guys, what do you think Solana is gonna do? I think Solana is like gonna chill / bleed a little bit, but I could be very wrong on that. But if you have been following the show, we had this monthly breakout, and when we were talking about Solana, I was like, when we were at 60, I was like 100, 120. That's the max that I can see this go. It's at 120, like it went to 120, then pulled back. It went from a broken support turned resistance to all the way to resistance, right? So it went to where it had to. So I wouldn't necessarily want to be pushing this one. I think Solana's been a good trade. If anything, I think you want to bet on ETH now in comparison to Solana. I think Solana's going to underperform ETH. But could be wrong. I don't have a horse in the race. I have a bunch of ETH, just because, I mean, everyone has a bunch of ETH from NFTs and stuff that you just, like illiquid NFTs, and then a bunch of wallets that just have nothing, like they just forget about and you didn't properly clear. So everyone has a little bit of ETH in this ecosystem, I think. But yeah, that's ETH right now. Had a little bit of momentum, but we've had that before. We've seen that story before. I think this is basically all people that have been waiting for the Bitcoin ETF to be done, and they're just kind of jumping in now. Doge BTC, I think Doge BTC is completely fucked. Like, people have been trying to make Doge a thing again. I think Elon cringed, like made this so cringe that it's borderline dead. Like, this was such a nice meme and was such a nice cyclical trade. I kept on making money with it, and then Elon blew it up, and yeah, now it's blowing up to the downside. I think this is one where it's really hard to justify being bullish. It is at support, or like actually is below support now. So I mean, if you want to be bullish Doge, right, I think the minimum it has to do is get above that green line. Do you think Google Trends is a good gauge of retail interest? Not really, no. I think Hisaka said Sol has another leg. Very possible. And I mean, Hisaka's been nailing. I mean, Hisaka's been trading Solana a million times better than I have, because I've just not been trading it. I've been calling it right, but I've not been trading it, which means nothing. Like, if you don't put money on it, it means nothing. I've been correct on Solana, right? But I didn't put money on it. So you can also listen to him. I was just asked about my opinion, and my opinion is like it ran to resistance. It's a little bit much to assume that resistance is also going to be broken. So I think that's my like realistic approach. But if the market goes completely crazy, like if Bitcoin runs to 60K, Solana is going to break this too. So it depends on kind of where you think the market is going to go. But in general, like I would expect Solana to struggle. Like it's at the most important monthly resistance on both the Bitcoin and the USD pair. Like look at that. Like if it's ever gonna make a lower high, it's here on the BTC pair. If it's ever gonna make a lower high on the USD pair, it's here, right? So like you're betting on strength into the two only resistances that you have on Solana, full stop. And that can be decent, right? Like I'm not one to hate on being bullish into resistance. I actually quite like that. But this one seems a little bit much to me. But who knows? Yeah. Rollbit. I actually don't know how that's been doing. I mean, that's quite the chart. But yeah, I wouldn't want to, like these online casinos, one like just morally and ethically and whatever the fuck. I think these are highly, I mean, they're just shit in my opinion. Like this is not something anyone should touch. But that's just my opinion. Chart wise, also obviously not that great. If you do the old Bitcoin pair, right? I mean, that's just tough. But yeah, I have no idea. Don, what are odds in your opinion for 60K after approval? I'd say like, I don't know, like 10, 20%. I mean, immediately, obviously, like something that can happen, right? And this is the most bullish outcome in my opinion, is if this just does this. Like, then yes, I think that's decent chance that plays out, but I don't think that's what you mean when you say 60K after approval. Like that'd be hilariously bullish, or even this. Like that'd be very, very bullish. But I wouldn't necessarily say that's 60K after the ETF. I mean, it is. At the end of the day, it's always gonna go to 60K after the ETF eventually, right? So what are the odds of 60K after ETF? I mean, almost like I'd say 99%, because I think we're gonna go above 60K eventually. It's just a time frame, right? Like, is it gonna go there in a month, in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years? In 5 years, I'd be shocked if it wasn't trading or hasn't been trading above 60K. How many days do you think it will take to get a good idea of the way the market is going to move end of week? It's actually a really good question. I think it's going to take longer than that. I think it's basically going to go like in February, you're going to be able, like if we get the approval tomorrow, yeah, then I think it's going to be February where you're going to see how the flows are going to be. I think Can says, I know I meant in 3 months. In 3 months, I think like that's like a 20-30% chance. To me, for me, whatever. But I think like 20 more than 30. But like I said, I'm not a news trader, and this is news territory, so I don't do much with this. CBOE listing tomorrow, brother? Yes. That's what they tweeted. That's how I started the stream, but I still want the SEC to tweet about it. So yeah, I think it's gonna be like February and March is where we're gonna see how the flows are gonna impact all of this. But I'm just gonna have to wait and see. Like this is unprecedented territory. It's a spot ETF. So I mean, a lot of people say like, hey, yeah, this is gonna pump Bitcoin to the moon, whatever. But they don't really talk about why that is. And the reason why I find the spot ETF to be approved quite bullish generally. For me, just like a little bit of backstory. For me, this market can always go to zero, right? Like I was never in the camp like this has to go to infinity. It's guaranteed. I always had in my head the risk, and this is how I traded too. And I don't think I will necessarily change that, but it's just in general the way I look at things in this market. But basically, the reason why is because it's a market that can be killed quite easily. People have tried, obviously countries have tried, whatever. With the Bitcoin ETF coming around, that possibility gets quite a bit smaller, right? Because then you have traditional finance and crypto on the same page, right? Like both profit from the market doing market things, instead of it's just the crypto bros, as in us, profiting from this if it goes up or down. Like we're literally getting in bed with the suits, and I think that's generally not the best, right? If you actually like what crypto stands for, and like I think it's like a little bit of an anti-thesis of sorts, like having an ETF and having all of this stuff. Getting kind of like integrated into the traditional world, but also I think it was always going to happen, right? But anyway, the fact that we're getting an ETF, if we get it, which is very likely, kind of legitimizes this whole space a little bit, and especially Bitcoin, which makes it so that the want or need to kill this thing, and it's something that you see with some politicians in America and all over the world with, Elizabeth Warren, for example, saying she's going to do an anti-crypto task force, whatever. Like, how is she going to justify that if we have like a huge ETF that is headed by BlackRock? Like, that's just a little bit of a more difficult thing to justify. Obviously can still do it, but basically for them to kind of go properly after crypto becomes much, much harder. So it's bullish longer term for price. Don't know if it's bullish for the entire thing, like for the thesis of crypto. No idea. But this is how it's always going to be when something gets big enough, right? It's not like the suits are just like, oh, we hate this. If they see something that they can make money off of, they're going to try. So wouldn't say it's an anti-thesis, considering adaptation was always part of the thesis. Yes, but at the end of the day, and this is something that you will see, if this ETF is actually competitively priced, and it is, right? Like the fees have been, the fees are quite low, the proposed fees. You're gonna have, and this includes me, right? Like I'm not gonna hold spot Bitcoin, or like not much. I'm gonna hold ETFs, and I'm not gonna self-custody. Self-custodying has a lot of inherent risks, right? Someone can just come to your house and break your knees and then take your crypto. It's always possible. If you have it with like in an ETF, that's a little bit of a different story, right? Like, so basically a bunch of people that were holding their own money, which is kind of the point, are gonna give the money to other people, or give the crypto to other people to kind of manage for them, which to me at least is not necessarily what it is all about. But I'm obviously gonna do it too. Like if the fees are good, why would I be anywhere else? Like I don't wanna be getting taken advantage of by exchanges if I can just not. And then it's just kind of like, that's just how it's gonna go. And then this gonna obviously get more and more like that, right? I mean, if you have a good product, and it's something that we've seen with Binance, for example, right? You have Binance comes around, offers a decent product, offers coins that no one else offers, and then takes over the market because they're just kind of like very quick, and they didn't really, like, they were just kind of very happy to skirt the law, allegedly, whatever. And then they took market share, and then basically Binance was the market. And I think the ETF thing can be very similar. So they can still break your knees for anything you own. Yeah, but there's it's quite a bit harder. Like if you wanna get your ETF paid out, it's gonna take longer. That's a bigger operation, right? Rather than someone coming into your house, taking your shit and then leaving, and then you have no way to trace it. I mean, that's then like if you have an ETF, then you have actual bank accounts involved, all that kind of shit. For me, it makes sense security wise, not even just for the breaking your knees stuff, but also for counterparty risk in the space, right? You're insured somewhat, so why not if you don't do anything actively with your crypto? So Coinbase is doomed? No. I mean, Coinbase is basically where all of these ETFs are doing their business, right? So I've seen a bunch of people basically be like, yeah, Coinbase is fucked. I mean, where do you think the ETFs are getting their Bitcoin from? It's I can tell you it's mostly Coinbase. So it's not, no. But yeah, I mean, as like a normal person, why would you be trading on Coinbase in the first place? Like, I've never understood that. Oh, is it out? Or is it not? Like, every time I see a candle like this, I'm going to be like, oh, is it out now or is it not? Nah, but yeah. Anyway, like these kind of candles, we're just going into news. Everyone is scared and everyone is over leveraged, basically. How would you choose which ETF to invest in out of all of the ones that are coming out? I actually no idea yet. I'm going to think about that in February, March. They still need to come out. They still need to be approved. But it is what it is. Anyway, I think I'm going to, I don't know. Is there anything you guys want to talk about still? Like anything that I'm missing? Anything before we get an ETF approval or denial? Donna, are you going to stay alive until we get approval? I would, but I literally, like, I'm dying. I'm on painkillers and my back is not nice sitting. It's also not nice lying down, but it's very much not nice sitting. And I actually planned on doing half an hour and we're almost 45 minutes in. So we're going to stay around till this candle is done because that's just fun. But yeah. I mean, yeah. Hope you get better as ASAP, mate. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's just going to be, I'm guessing tomorrow I'm not going to be able to move. So I'm just going to be in bed all day. And then afterwards it's going to be fine. It's the aging, my friends. When you go old like me, then we can all talk about it. But yeah, that's that. It's going to look like every time Bitcoin goes down, we have an ETH BTC candle to the upside. This is why I said this is like a little bit cursed because, yeah, cool, ETH is going up, but if it goes up while Bitcoin goes down, are you really making money? The answer is no, right? So that's why this is a little bit cursed. How old are you, dude? Not as old as you think, but it's all about mental age. It's how old you feel. Everyone keeps saying like age is just it just matters how you feel, right? And I feel ancient, so so that's that. Just left the screen. What happened? I mean, it's just like odd candles. Don is just reading comments differently than they are written soon into ASAP, fancy into fancy, etc. I mean, I'm saying you guys need to work on your comment writing skills because, yeah. Nah, I mean, when I sometimes simplify and I sometimes, if I don't want to pronounce a word because I don't know how, I'm just going to use a different one. A CPO email saying Invesco and ARK withdrew ETF certifications. I mean, yeah. Dude, if we get a denial, we're so fucked. But I don't think that's going to happen. But if we get a denial, woo! That'd be fun. As in not fun. I actually wouldn't like it. I think I would like an approval into sideways the best. Like that would make me the happiest, as in like something like this. And then you might say, hey, Don, but then you cannot buy below where you exited. And to that I will answer, my exit really doesn't matter. It's the setup. Every single setup is a different kind of setup. And you have to stop thinking about entries and where you last bought and sold and whatever, because that's not going to help you. You need to trade the setups and then go from there. Otherwise, you're always going to look in the past, and sometimes the market doesn't come back, and then you're screwed. But you don't trade momentum. I mean, if it does this, it's not momentum trade. Like at that point, that's a consolidation trade. Like I just don't trade. Like if you look at this, I don't trade these candles. I'm either in position or I'm not. Like you're not gonna see me like this candle comes in. I'm like, okay, this is gonna go up, and then I'm gonna buy, and then you get the teleport. Very rarely do I do that. More often than not, like I see a grind up like this, and I'm gonna start buying. And this is obviously low time frame garbage, but you get my point. Looks like they're withdrawing it. Dude, if they're stringing us along till March, I'm just gonna die. I mean, when the fuck am I gonna get back to trading if they keep delaying it and it's March and then we're fucking... what the fuck do we do? Oh, I mean, at some point I want to trade again. But if we get the ETF in March, I'm not gonna trade till mid-year. Did you just ignore the drop? I'm not ignoring the drop. It's like a 5-minute drop. Like, dude, this is nothing. Like you cannot see this on the daily time frame. You're like, did you just ignore the drop? The drop. Look at this daily candle. Oh no, this daily candle opened and is now 0.7% below where it opened. It's so fucking over. I mean, like, we're not moving. Anyway, I think that's it. It's enough. We'll see how this ETF thing plays out. If it gets delayed, we just all jump out of the window together. It's just how it is. If it gets approved, that's where it's going to be fun. If it gets denied, I'll see you all in hell, basically. That's how it's going to go. It got delayed. Well, we'll see. I'm going to check with my trusty sources once the stream is done. Like I said, I don't have any of those on this computer. But yeah, appreciate you guys coming by. Hope it's been somewhat entertaining. I was about to say educating, but I mean, we all know that isn't it. And yeah, I appreciate you guys coming by. Big shout out to Voos for sponsoring the show. Really appreciate their support. You should go check them out. Links are in the description. Yeah, I'll be back with you on Friday. This time for real. Yeah, see you then. Bye bye.